Good afternoon and welcome to the 330 Sports Show. My name is Justin Coffin. Today is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. On our show today, we are going to, on the second part of our show, we are going to have Penguin football players, a wide receiver duo. We're going to have Bryce Oliver and Max Tomczak join us on the show. Also, we are going to talk about if you're a Steeler fan, you're very happy today. If you're a Browns fan, it's a very sad day for multiple reasons. But the Browns Steelers Monday night game last night, we'll get into that in just a minute. We'll talk news and notes from the weekend. We'll talk a little Ohio State Buckeyes and get into the YSU game from this weekend towards the end of the show before we bring in our guests. So let's start off with the Browns, and these were my keys to the game heading into the Steelers week 2. Get the Pittsburgh monkey off our backs. We haven't won there in the regular season since 2003. Didn't accomplish that. Weren't able to start 2-0 since 93. The Browns also have not won back-to-back divisional games since 2014, so that storyline unfortunately continues. The Browns defense, however, though, very dominant in this game outside of one busted coverage. Did a very, very, very good job overall, and I'll get into some of those numbers here in a minute. We all know the Nick Chubb injury, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, except for we know Nick Chubb was the heart and soul of this team. The Browns still ran it very well. Nick Chubb did a great job when he was in before the injury. Jerome Ford comes in and has a pretty nice game off the bench. So just a terrible injury last night, and I'm sick to my stomach about it. Just unfortunate that anyone has to go through that. Deshaun Watson did not play well last night. We'll get into that in a minute. And DeJuan Jones replacing Jack Conklin. They just overall as an offensive line, I don't think did a very good job last night versus the Steelers defense. So basically, to recap week 2, the Browns had 4 turnovers, and it's just unacceptable. So 6 turnovers in the first 2 games. 3 of them fumbles last night. One of them an interception to start the game, like literally a pick 6 to start the game, which is setting the Steelers up for success, especially when their offense did not do much. And the first interception, maybe not on Deshaun Watson, but not the greatest throw, but not the worst throw, or still wasn't the best throw. And Harrison Bryant could have done a better job reeling that in. The offense allowed more points than the defense last night. That is how crazy of a game this was last night. They gave up that pick 6 and a sack, scoop, and score with TJ Watt, which you knew he was going to be a factor. But listen to some of these numbers. This is just some crazy stats. If I told you the Browns would have 408 total yards to Pittsburgh's 255, you're probably like, oh, it's a comfortable, 10, 13-point win. But the Browns ran it for 200 yards, threw it for 200 yards, and still lost this game. The Steelers had 200 passing and only 55 yards rushing, and 200 of those, about 85 of those passing yards came on one play. So overall, did not do much. Pittsburgh had 9 first downs in the entire game, and they had 2 turnovers as well and 7 punts, and they still won this game. And to me, this is the craziest stat of the night. Pittsburgh had negative 7 yards total in the fourth quarter, but still scored 7 points because of that scoop and score in the fourth quarter. And just really unfortunate for the Browns because the defense did everything to win that game. So basically, in summary, the Browns have a great defense through the first 2 weeks, but a lot of work to do on offense. And we all know the Nick Chubb injury. He is, you could say, if not the best running back in the league, the second best running back in the league. But how are they going to rally behind his injury? What are they going to do? So, not just what he did, but the heart and soul of this team. Quiet leader, but it's just absolutely awful. But on the season, he only had 10 carries in this game, but basically every time you give it to him, it's basically 5 yards, and just unfortunate to lose just such a bell cow for the Cleveland Browns and their offense. So, what are the Browns going to do to replace him? You have Jerome Ford, you have Pierre Strong, you probably have John Kelly in the practice squad. I have to check on that. But free agency targets. Do you bring back a familiar face, Kareem Hunt? Do you bring in J.D. McKissick, Trey Sermon, Leonard Fournette? Do you trade for Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, somebody else like that? A lot of big names out there still, but no one's going to be able to replace Nick Chubb. But can the Browns get 80 to 90% of what he was in a platoon unit? Possibly. So that remains to be seen. But we all wish Nick Chubb the very best. It's a gruesome injury, and it reminded me honestly of the 2002 national championship game between Ohio State and Miami when Willis McGahee's knee basically did the same thing. He ended up coming back fairly strong and having a nice NFL career, but Nick Chubb, kind of midway through his NFL career, and I just wish him all the best, not just to get back to health to play football, but just in general, and hope this heals well. And just I don't know. We just wish him all the best. Going on to Deshaun Watson, he has struggled. There's no denying that. It's not a physical thing. It seems to be a mental thing with him. But 38 for 69 so far in the season, 55%. That's not good enough. 389 yards, which is about 195 yards per game. He does have 11 carries for 67 yards, a touchdown on this season. Did have that fumble last night as well. And also 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. This is a guy that's normally a 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio guy. So I don't know what's going on. You can't blame it on rust anymore, but he's got to figure it out. And, the Steelers do deserve a lot of credit. They have a great defense, but not good enough. Deshaun Watson has to be better. And if the Browns simply don't turn the ball over last night, they win comfortably. So, it's a frustrating thing. I woke up kind of sick to my stomach, and I'm sure Steeler fans are very happy today, as they should be. Their team won, but Browns fans, we know this feeling all too well, and it's kind of it sucks. Let's just put it that way. I will give the Steelers fans a lot of credit. They did, give a nice round of applause. Seemed to be pretty classy from what it sounded like in the stadium. So hats off to them for that. So we'll just move on from there. So here's the AFC North. Browns, are 1-1, also 1-1 in the division. The Bungles struggle and go to 0-2. They did not look right against the Ravens, who are now 2-0. The Ratbirds will host the Colts on Sunday, and they'll be favored heavily in that game, probably by at least, I would think, by 6 or more. And then the Steelers, they will play next Sunday night at Las Vegas. So they are 1-1. So the Browns and the Steelers both at 1-1. Baltimore at the top 2-0, and Cincinnati, the division favorite at the beginning of the year, is 0-2, sitting at the bottom of the AFC North. Looking at the Browns' schedule, what's coming next? We got the big win against the Bengals. A gutting loss last night for multiple reasons, but the season is not over. There's a lot of football to be played. 15 more games. And you got 2 home games with a bye week. Actually, 3 consecutive home games coming up with a bye mixed in there. So you got to split these games. Ideally, going 2-0 would be great, but you move on to the Titans. You try to get that win and then see what happens after that. But the Browns, hopefully they can rally behind this Nick Chubb injury, and move on and get better. They're not going to be able to replace him, but if the defense can play well, if Deshaun Watson can get back on track and the offense can just hold on to the football, they should be fine. All right, so looking at week 2, Joe is killing it on his picks this week. So Joe was 12-4 this week to go to 23-9 on the season. I split and I went 8-8, 500, and I am 17-5 on the season. So we'll make our picks on Thursday, and these are straight up picks, but still a lot of upsets in week 2, and hard to figure out some teams right now. So that's what we're looking at week 2. And the standings in the AFC through 2 weeks. Look at the the whole divisions. Like there's only 2-0 teams in the AFC, that being the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ratbirds. So there's a lot of room to grow. There's a lot of room to move and improve here. So a lot of possibilities for a lot of different teams. But you look at some of these surprise teams: the Chargers 0-2, and the Chiefs 1-1. But there's a lot of movement that's going to happen. But there's a lot of possibilities open for a lot of these teams. In the NFC, look at the NFC East. They are 7-1 as a division so far, and look at the NFC South. They are 6-2, with Carolina being 0-2, but the rest of the teams being 2-0. So that is where we stand through 2 weeks. Let's move on to the Ohio State Buckeyes. They had a phenomenal performance on Saturday, getting things back on track. 63-10 over Western Kentucky, who Western Kentucky coming into this had the number 1 ranked pass offense in the entire country. But Kyle McCord goes 19-23, named the full-time starter, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Travion Henderson is starting to get a little bit more carries, getting ramped up for that Notre Dame game. 13 carries, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. Our 2 stud receivers, Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka, combined for about 9 catches and about 180 yards and 4 touchdowns on the day. Cade Stover, 5 catches, 90 yards. Chip Trayanum, 5 carries, 57 yards, 1 touchdown. And Carnell Tate, the true freshman, 2 catches, 40 yards, and a touchdown. But the Ohio State defense deserves a ton of credit in this game. Western Kentucky is not known for their defense, but they are known for their offense. And this is a team that beat up South Florida, who really played tough with Alabama. This is a team that has won 9 games the past several years, and probably will be right up there to win their Conference USA. So this is not a bad Western Kentucky team, but the Buckeyes nearly actually did basically double them up, 562 to 284 in total yardage. They held Western Kentucky to 3.9 yards per play, 3 of 16 on third down. They forced 4 turnovers, 2 of them which led directly to scores. Tommy Eichenberg had 9 tackles. Steele Chambers, the linebacking core, Steele Chambers had 4 tackles and 1 pick. And the defense, like I said, held that number 1 passing offense to 204 yards passing on 39 attempts, which is awesome. So that brings up the biggest game of the year thus far for Ohio State, a top 10 matchup. Ohio State will travel to South Bend, Indiana to take on the Fighting Irish. Ohio State 4 in the coaches poll. I believe they are 6 in the AP poll currently, but the Buckeyes go in as 3.5-point favorites. These are the lines that came out on Monday. The over-under for the game is 54.5. So this game will be on NBC at 7:30, and as I said, at Notre Dame Stadium. So let's take a look at Kyle McCord, what he's done so far. Now, this is a guy that got basically a lot of crap at the beginning of the season, but this is a guy that if he puts it all together, he is hopefully going to stay right in that lineage of Ohio State quarterbacks. But completion percentage of basically 70% on the season, 53 of 76. He's averaging about 271.6 yards per game. He has 6 touchdowns to that 1 interception on the season. The best player in the country, in my opinion, Marvin Harrison Jr., 14 catches on the year, 304 yards. That's good for about 101 yards per game. He's averaging about 22 yards a catch and has 3 touchdowns on the season. Emeka Ibuka, maybe the second best wide receiver in the country, 12 catches for 147 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 14 yards a catch for this guy. And then the running backs on the season. This kind of what I think they're trying to do is make Travion Henderson kind of the bell cow running back, but he is more of your explosive, big time distance running backs to kind of see a hole, get through it, and explode and see what happens. But 30 carries for about 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 6.5 yards per carry. Chip Trayanum, I think, is your backup running back right now. 19 carries, 133 yards, 1 touchdown, and 7 yards a carry. And then Mayan Williams, I think, is going to be that goal line back for the Buckeyes. 18 carries, 73 yards. Not impressive yards per carry, but that's because he's used in short yardage situations and goal line packages, has 2 touchdowns on the season. All right, let's move on to the YSU Penguins before we bring on our guests. So, YSU moves to 2-1 on the season with a 48-28 win over Robert Morris. Guest of the show, Mitch Davidson, 21 of 25, 339 yards, 1 touchdown, had an interception, but also had 5 carries for 42 yards and another touchdown on the ground. Another running back on the show that was on the show on last Thursday, Dre Rushton, had 14 carries, 55 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception for 14 yards, and fellow backfield mate Tyshawn King had 12 carries for 117 yards, 3 touchdowns, and also had a catch for 19 yards. Both of them obviously combined for 5 touchdowns between Rushton and King. And King was named the newcomer of the week in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. So congratulations to him on that. If we take a look at YSU's schedule, they are going to be off this week on a bye week, but they knocked off Valparaiso. Obviously, you got the loss against Ohio State, but not a big deal there. Move on. You get Robert Morris. You take care of business there. Now they will go on the road after this bye week and take on Northern Iowa. I think that is a game. Now, that's a place they've struggled in the past, but Northern Iowa is a game that should be on the schedule, should be a victory for the Penguins, in my opinion. And then Southern Illinois, another ranked opponent on the Penguins' schedule. And you know, their schedule is not easy. So we'll just put it that way. But YSU has a lot of stuff in front of it. Let's take a look at the rankings. 2 of their conference foes, number 1 and number 2 in the poll, South Dakota State and North Dakota State. And then also on there, let's see, you got Southern Illinois at 13. You got North Dakota at 14. You have YSU sitting there at number 24. So a lot of teams from the Missouri Valley in the top 25 this week, and YSU is going to keep creeping up there, and hopefully they can take care of business at Northern Iowa in about 12 days or so from now. So let's talk about our guests on the show today. We're going to be joined here in just a minute by Bryce Oliver, number 0, the wide receiver, transferred in from Kentucky, and then wide receiver Max Tomczak, number 4, will be joining our show here in just a minute. So Bryce on the season, 17 catches for 210 yards, had 10 touchdowns last season and over 800 yards receiving. And then Max doing a great job, had that huge catch against Ohio State down the field on a long third down, but 5 catches for 87 yards on the season. And these guys are just getting better and better each game. So we're going to talk to Max and Bryce here in just a minute. So stay tuned for that, and appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to follow the 330 Sports Show on social media. Make sure to follow Youngstown Studio as well on social media. We'll talk to you guys in just a minute, but stay tuned for our guests, Max and Bryce, and we'll be right here on the 3